Now, Troopers is a series of features we've been running about women who just spot something that needs doing and they get on and they do it. And Sarah Burrows was a manager in the Youth Offending Service in Oxfordshire. Back in 2011, she was dealing with children and young people coming into the criminal justice system for the first time. And she began to wonder just how many of them also had a parent in prison in some cases. And she discovered that for young men, that figure was 65%.
It just seems so blinding obvious. If you know that 65% of boys are going to go on to offend, then actually why not intervene really early and stop that happening? But I knew there was a need in terms of wanting to support the families, but did families actually want that? Is that what they needed? And so booked like lots of different village halls at the weekends. And no one turned up.
So you would advertise?
Yeah, and go out to all the different schools, put in flyers in the GP surgeries, put them on notice boards.
And what did the flyers say?
Something like, have you a partner in prison? Would you like support for you and your family? And if so, contact us. So some did contact, but nobody showed. So we had quite a few occasions that kept moving the location and looking, and I'd have volunteers there, really supportive, we'd take all the stuff around, and nobody came. And then in a community hall in Oxford City, 8 women came who didn't know one another. And one, this is a grandmother, and she had looked after her grandchildren since they were 18 months and 3 years old. And they were 13 and 16 at the time, and she just sat and cried and cried and cried. Shame, stigma, isolation, how they're viewed by their community, how the children are bullied in school.
You mentioned the part that shame plays in this situation. Do you want to just talk me through that specifically?
I think as a society, the way people who have a parent in prison are treated is quite appalling. From their addresses being printed, well, the person who's going to be serving the sentence is no longer at that address, but there's children at that address. And often the response is, well, they weren't thinking about their children when they committed an offence, but actually it's the children that are left there. They really have so much bullying from that. We've had people assaulted. We've had someone with faeces through the door. And actually, what does that say to children about as a society caring their parent offending isn't actually anything to do with them. Children don't actually want to often talk about it to other children because there is a lot of bullying. So we've got one little boy. He was 4, and so he was at school, about to be 5, and he was the only child in the class not to be invited for the birthday party, as an example. And actually starting your school career of being the child ostracised for something that you haven't done is quite unbelievable, really.
And how did that play out for him?
That he felt really, obviously, sad, angry, and couldn't understand why. And so then it was necessary to do a piece of work with the school about actually talking to parents about how the child might feel.
So it sounds to me like you respond to each case quite uniquely. It's quite a tailored response in terms of what each family, each child might need.
Yes, and at different stages throughout the sentence, people need different things. Every family is different, so it's around the family dynamics. So we support children whose father will be going back to the family home. We support children who have no contact with their parent in prison, maybe because of the offence type or maybe because they're the victim. We support children whose parents have already separated, but actually they still were having a relationship with that parent who is inside. So it's really different for everybody.
Do you deal with many families where it's the mother that's in prison?
We have had quite a few mothers, but it's mainly the fathers. At the moment we're working with 165 children, and 10% of those are living with their grandparents, and that often is the mother, the one that is serving the sentence, or both parents, or the father serving a sentence and the mother having drug and alcohol issues.
How many years did you do this on your own?
I was on my own until February this year, and now have 3 colleagues I work with. No, well, initially I did it on my own as on a voluntary basis, and then how I grew it was somebody worked on like a very small part-time basis, and then as we got a bit more funding, increased her hours, and it went like that, and she was amazing.
Did you always know? I mean, obviously there's the moment with the empty halls, but once you got past that, did you always know that you could do this?
I wasn't going to give up. No. I knew that there was a need, and if there's a need, then it might not be the way that I think that it should go, but then listen to others, listen to the families, and adapt it. But yeah, I felt so, and I still do, really, really passionate about it, and children, about, as a society, we should create change for them. And if I can do a small part of that, then yeah.
I've got something here I want to read to you. This is from somebody who you've supported. Sarah has changed my life. If there were more Sarahs around, the world would be a happier place. Do you hear stuff like that often?
The parents we support are fabulous. I mean, I've met so many interesting women. They're amazing. And in fact, just before I came in here, one of the mums phoned me and I said, well, I can't talk. And she said, oh, you should have told me you were coming and I'd have done your nails. I mean, they're really lovely women that I work with, yeah.
What would you like to see happen in the next few years?
The thing that I find staggering is there is no government databases of who these children might be. Nobody knows who they are, and that was why it is difficult to set something up. I just think that there should be a way of capturing this information and supporting children earlier, and that's what I'd really like to see change. We don't know who these children are.
That was Sarah Burrows talking to our reporter Laura Thomas. Her charity, that's Sarah's charity, is called Children Heard and Seen, and it now operates in Oxfordshire, in Berkshire and in Birmingham, and it continues to offer virtual support services during lockdown, so that's good to hear.